For over half a century, the killer who stalked Northern California has been treated like a real-life horror movie villain. The pop culture myth paints him as an untouchable mastermind, a phantom who hunted innocent people and treated murder as an elaborate game, always staying one step ahead of the authorities. The reality is entirely different. On the night of October 11, 1969, the killer shifted his hunting grounds to the wealthy, quiet streets of San Francisco's Presidio Heights neighborhood. There, he shot a 29-year-old taxi driver named Paul Stine, stole his wallet, and tore a bloody piece of fabric from his shirt. 3 teenagers witnessed the attack from across the street and called the police immediately. 2 responding patrol officers arrived on the scene in minutes. They actually saw the killer walking away. They spoke to him, and then they let him go. A catastrophic combination of local dispatch errors, jurisdictional divisions, and technological limits allowed the murderer to escape, not any superior criminal intellect. To actually understand how the Zodiac remained unidentified, we have to completely abandon the ghost story. We have to look closely at the forensic failures and the broken system that allowed a flawed, flesh-and-blood man to slip through the cracks. This vintage dispatcher microphone represents the first critical failure. In the chaos following the Paul Stine murder, a severe miscommunication occurred at the dispatch center. The dispatcher mistakenly broadcast that the suspect fleeing the scene was a black male. The 2 patrol officers who arrived moments later saw a heavy-set white man matching the actual killer's description walking away from the cab. Because they were strictly looking for a black suspect, they simply asked if he had seen anything suspicious and let him disappear into the night. That single radio error permanently neutralized the quickest and closest police response of the entire investigation. The killer systematically crossed county lines, striking in Benicia, Vallejo, Napa, and San Francisco. In the 1960s, these borders acted like brick walls. Police operated as isolated silos without centralized digital databases. To compare notes, detectives had to physically mail their case files. The local agencies were entirely overwhelmed, and the federal government couldn't step in to take control. At the time, serial murder was not classified as a federal crime. The FBI provided support with handwriting and fingerprinting, but legally could not lead a unified manhunt. The killer recognized these invisible bureaucratic borders and used them to his advantage. The lack of basic coordination between neighboring police departments became his absolute greatest defense. This handwritten document is part of how the killer officially introduced himself to the public. He demanded that newspapers print complex cryptograms on their front pages, threatening random violence if they refused. The federal intelligence agencies, including the CIA and the FBI, took on the task of decoding his first 408-character cipher. They failed. The puzzle was actually cracked in less than a week by a civilian married couple from Salinas, California, sitting at their kitchen table. When decoded, the message didn't reveal a calculating mastermind. It exposed a disturbed individual who claimed he murdered people to collect slaves for the afterlife. The spelling was atrocious, and the logic was completely unhinged. Look at this animated breakdown of his most infamous cryptogram, the Z340. This puzzle baffled the world's top codebreakers for 51 years. It turned out that the code was unbreakable for so long because the killer made a clumsy structural error while putting it together, completely throwing off his own mathematical pattern. It wasn't until December 2020 that an international team of 3 amateur codebreakers finally solved it. They had to build custom software and run over 650,000 digital simulations just to bypass the killer's sloppy mistake and read the text underneath. He wasn't a genius. His success relied on primitive forensics and a lack of digital communication. The history of the case proves he was a highly flawed amateur who simply got lucky in a broken system. The sheer frustration of cases like this forced law enforcement to evolve. The systemic failures that let him escape directly paved the way for the centralized databases, DNA repositories, and federal task forces that modern investigators rely on today. In 2002, the San Francisco Police Department took a major step forward, using 21st century forensics. They successfully extracted a partial DNA profile from saliva trapped beneath a vintage postage stamp on one of the killer's letters. That single genetic extraction completely destroyed decades of official police theory. It definitively ruled out Arthur Lee Allen, the man pictured in this mugshot, and the only suspect ever formally named by authorities. Today, investigators are attempting to use the same advanced genetic genealogy that caught the Golden State Killer. They've submitted the genetic material to open-source databases, searching for a relative's match. The problem is that the 50-year-old DNA profile is highly degraded and incomplete, making a definitive familial match immensely difficult to lock down. We have his behavioral profile, we have his decoded letters, we have his genetic fragments sitting in an evidence locker, waiting for the right genealogical connection. The Zodiac was a flesh and blood man who slipped through a fragile 1960s dragnet. After more than half a century of speculation, thousands of suspects, and a mountain of evidence, it all comes down to the science. Who do you think is hiding in that digital code? And will modern technology ever finally reveal his face? Let me know your theories in the comments below.